There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. All's well that ends well, but remember, next time your buddy asks you for a race to the surface, politely decline. Until next time, my name's James. Who is it?
It's Tec.
Tec, what's the password?
I've got beer.
All right then. Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? And welcome to Divers Ready. And my guest today for the next in this series that we're calling My Dive Buddies is the world famous Mr. Tec Clark. Welcome to the studio, Tec. It's great to have you here, mate.
Thanks for having me here.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Cheers, by the way.
Cheers.
We say cheers already? I don't know. There we go.
There we go.
How's it going?
Great, great.
So Tec, if you don't know, is the host of not one, but two fantastic podcasts. I struggle to find time to make content for my one single channel, and you're making two different podcasts, and you're holding down the day job as, let me get this right, Associate Director of Aquatics.
Aquatics and scuba diving.
So that's everything.
NOVA Southeastern University, right?
Up in Fort Lauderdale.
Yep.
Fantastic, man, fantastic. I don't know where you find the time.
I don't either. And if you ask my wife, she will have an opinion on it too.
That's fantastic. Now, we were put together in the most random way, right? I was already aware of the Dive Locker podcast, brilliant podcast for professional divers. Yeah. I learned so much from it. I mean, your episode alone with Gareth Block, I think, is worth its weight in gold. Mm-hmm. Your episode on liability insurance was like, I've shared that so many times. I've sent that to so many people because I think it's vital information and that kind of stuff. So if you're a dive master or above, anyone really can get value out of it, but specifically dive masters and above and professionals in this industry, the Dive Locker podcast. And then you also have the League of Extraordinary Divers, where you've got just interviews with the who's who of scuba diving.
Yeah,
you know,
legends in our industry.
You're the Oprah Winfrey of scuba diving. You get all the interviews. You get all. It's like whoever.
I never thought of that.
You know, and you told me something really interesting when we had drinks in a brewery a little while ago when we were scheming all our nefarious schemes here.
That's right.
And you wanted to talk about. I asked you. I said, "Well, who's the one person?" Because you get everyone. You get Jill Heinert. You get, you get all the superstars of the sport. I said, "Who's the one person?" Do you remember who you told me?
No.
Ben Stiller.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot.
I want to get Ben Stiller. You know, I emailed his agent for you.
He did what?
I emailed his agent.
No, you didn't.
Never heard back.
Oh, that's awesome.
Listen. I know that Ben used to be a PADI dive master.
That's awesome.
And my buddy Tec has a podcast where he interviews famous divers. I never heard back, didn't hear anything. I was going to do it as a surprise for you. And I never heard back.
That's so cool.
I found his agent and I went through the whole, probably never heard back.
I heard a story a long time ago that he was a dive master at some point. Yeah. And, or he at least got the certification of it. I don't know if he ever worked.
No, I looked it up because I went, really? Ben Stiller was a dive master? And it fascinated me after we had those drinks. And I was like, I came back and I looked up and I found his agent, contacted the agent. And then it turns out that in Along Came Polly, there's that French dive, the West Indian French dive instructor who steals his girlfriend or wife, I think they're on. Yeah, that was based on him. He wrote that. I think it's Hank Azaria plays the dive instructor on the beach, and he's like, "Look, ben, you're for scuba. As long as you're for scuba, I'm happy." Right, that guy was based on him, like that
awesome.
Kind of Caribbean lifestyle.
I love it. Yeah, no, I would love to interview him because that's hilarious. Yeah. And I'm a big fan of him anyhow. I mean, he's just a great actor, a great writer. So. That's so cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Thanks
man,
for looking into that.
Nothing came. I was so bummed.
Well, maybe they will respond to you. So
I don't know. Yeah, I had to try.
That's so cool.
So what I really want to talk to you about is your world of academia, which I know very little about. I mean, I barely finished high school. I did, but only just, by the skin of my teeth. If I wasn't good at rugby, I don't think I'd have finished high school. Let me put it that way. All right? There's definitely... But you are teaching scuba at a very high academic level. And I think my burning question, the most obvious one to me is, how does that differ from doing what you do as a course director and instructor trainer, or just a general dive instructor? How does that differ from working in like a recreational, family-owned dive center?
Yeah, sure. So, the environment at any university is one about education and learning, and it's just it just makes sense that in an academic environment that you pour a little bit more into the training. So that's kind of a given. And then there is the piece that goes with recreational versus academic. So you could have a recreational dive program at a university, that a dive shop comes to the university and offers as part of aquatics or as part of recreation. But usually what you see is an academic side. And that academic side is what would then be done through a department that is a academic unit, not a student's service unit like recreation would be.
Recreation.
Yeah. And so on an academic side, that could be physical education, exercise and sports science, many different areas that a dive program could be housed in. And then what happens is you get credits. And so if you get credits, those academic credits are sanctioned by governing bodies that say you have to have so much of this and so much of that and so much of the other thing. So if you take a look at a typical academic course that we have at NOVA Southeastern University, it's going to be about a 15-week semester.
Right.
And in that 15 weeks, you're going to meet a certain amount of hours to get a certain amount of credit hours. So your 3 credit hours involves in-class time, lab time, and homework time, and prep time to get you that 3 credit hour offering.
Yeah.
And then if it was a 2 credit hour class, it'd be less. 1 credit hour class, less than that. But the deal is that what's going to take place is in that time, you are meeting with the students, you're developing with them. So think about this. This is where the world of academic diving usually blows everyone's mind.
Yeah.
Open water diver. So we get people that come in all the time that say, I've heard all these great things about your academic diving program at NOVA. 3rd largest in the country. You guys are great, blah, 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 and all this accolades. I want to work for you. And the first thing out of my mouth is, would you even know where to begin to teach a 15-week scuba class?
I'll answer that right now. I wouldn't.
Exactly.
No, absolutely
and
not.
Most people don't. So it's not to say that that's a bad thing, that, then, leave us, don't be a part of us. But it's a consideration that says, when the people that kind of come back and say, well, I guess you just pour more into it. I guess you do more skill variations. I guess you do more skill repeats. I guess you do this or that or the other thing and be creative.
Yeah.
That's what our world is all about.
Right.
So if we've got a 15-week-long open water diver class, for example, we're going to spend 4 weeks just on snorkeling, skin diving, free diving, and building up somebody with those skill sets.
Right.
Then we get into scuba. And then at scuba, we're starting them off, we're doing all the things, but we're not following the 5 prerequisite confined water sessions that one has to do.
Yeah.
We're adding to each one of those.
Yeah.
And we might do confined water session 2 over 2 or 3 classes.
Wow.
Just so that we flesh it out more. And what that does is it makes for a much better, more proficient student. They
Absolutely.
come out of this class and they are rock stars. So the beginning of every open water diver class, I promise all the students, you are going to be more prepared, more comfortable, more confident on your checkout dives than any other student that is at the lake or on the dive boat.
Absolutely.
And you're even going to be more so than some of the seasoned divers on the dive boat or the lake. No one believes me. In 9 years of this dive program, and I've been at other dive programs, no dive program, no one believes me until that very last weekend when we go diving.
Yeah.
And everyone's nervous doing their first checkout dives, right? But when they get there, they're just looking at other people going, they don't know how to set up their equipment. These people are crashing into the reef. They don't know neutral buoyancy. These people are stuck on the line because they've never done deep water exercises with equalization. And so we have this opportunity that's just a really beautiful opportunity in an academic environment to take people through really robust training. And we do it not only at the academic level, but at our recreation level as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's phenomenal. That's completely... That's how training should be, if only we had that luxury, right? But people go on vacation, they go to Cancun, and they get certified in 2.5 days, and it scares the bejesus out of me. It really does, because I'm worried for whoever's going to get them next. Whereas you're basically, people are leaving your open water class as dive masters, basically, at that kind of quality level.
Well, you're so right. And so like with our academic course, it's called Introduction to Scuba Science because it's an M-Bio, that's a marine biology science track.
That faculty, right?
Yeah, and so we come under that. So it's a marine bio, so that's why we throw the word science in there instead of open water diver. Now, we can't just put in the curriculum of a normal training agency's open water diver course. It's not enough.
It's not enough.
So in our case, what we're offering is a PADI certification in that course, but we would not follow just that PADI book materials, video, online, all that. We take it a step further. The students have to actually use the Encyclopedia of Recreational Diving.
Excellent.
So we are training our open water divers on Archimedes' principle, Boyle's law, Dalton's law, all of it, Henry's. We're putting it all there. They have to know it. So now, what does that mean for the rest of our program? It means that our dive masters and our instructors have to be absolute rock stars if we're teaching students, open water divers, open water divers, and they already are memorizing these gas laws and they are doing neutral buoyancy halfway through this first night on scuba. We're in neutral buoyancy, but they've mastered neutral buoyancy by halfway through the semester. Yeah,
exactly right.
And so that's a really neat thing about it.
And you make that point there that I absolutely love and I bang on about so many times on this channel, is that when you see your instructor at a recreational dive center flipping through those slates, and burning through those skills, if you get an instructor that does everything on all those slates, okay, right? Okay, at least they've done everything they're supposed to do, right? You get instructors who start skipping skills, then we've got a problem. But if they do everything on all those slates, they've done the minimum requirement.
Yeah.
Those slates are the minimum.
Exactly.
So in academia, right, what's that, a C minus? That's the lowest passing grade? That's what that is. So if you've done everything there, or D, I don't know how, over in England it's like C minus would be the lowest pass. So if you've done everything on those slates, and you've done it one time and you've done it satisfactorily, C minus. Yeah. That's the score you'd get, right? Exactly. You're training A+ students.
Exactly. And so that's what's a really unique thing about it, is that they're coming out and they are really, really great students and they don't know any better. One of the things we do is, like, if we're at the lake and we'll be explaining this, and this is a really, really unique thing that happens. We take the students, they've been through 15 weeks of training. By that time, it's actually 12 weeks before the end of the semester and their finals and all. So it's about
just 12 weeks of dive training, right. Something nobody else gets.
Yeah. So here we go, and we're walking. We do freshwater and saltwater. We want everybody to know everything. We do dive tables, we do dive computers, we do integrated weights, we do weight belts. We want everybody to get the biggest package they can get. And so we go to the lake, and at the lake, and you know it well, there's a little training pool in the middle. Mm-hmm. And so here the students, tiger tail. So we're here to do open water dives 1 and 2, right? And so these are the first dives, and here we go. And we're watching these students go through their confined water.
Yeah.
And when I explain to them that many of these students that are going through today will be doing all of their confined water in 1 day.
Yeah.
And then they just get out of that little pen
cage
and they walk across the dock and they jump in the lake, and there's confined open water dive 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And you go, the students just are going, wait a minute.
What?
Wait, what? So they're at the same level we are right now.
Yeah.
Doing open water dive 1
after
today.
Yeah.
after that.
And if you're lucky, maybe they got 2 or 3 hours in the classroom, if they're lucky.
And sometimes, I couldn't script it better. There's students bolting to the surface, coughing and sputtering because they because they have not practiced and they have not gone easily into it. So I realize I'm blessed. I am not putting down. I've worked in many dive centers, so I understand that environment. I've taught in that environment. But I've also worked for 4 universities with 4 different dive programs, and that is my preferred way to teach and train people, is in a much longer, much more thorough way of teaching. And that goes from everything from free diver through instructor. It's not just about open water. We offer everything.
Yeah, so if somebody's there for a 3-year undergrad, they can do the first semester open water, second semester advanced level, or however you phrase it, right? First semester of the second year would be rescue, right?
Yeah.
Well, and then however much they want to push it.
Exactly, and that's the academic route, But look, our recreational class is 6 weeks long. Right. 2 nights a week for 6 weeks if you want to do the recreational and you don't want to get college credit for it. And who would that be for? Well, our graduate students. Right. Because that marine biology, MBio, Introduction to Scuba Science is a 3-credit undergraduate class.
Right.
So a graduate student who wants to be an oceanography or a marine biologist graduate, they don't want that class, but they want to take it. They want to take courses because to be a scientific diver, they have to have the 5 prerequisites: open water, advanced, rescue, nitrox, and oxygen provider. Okay. So all 5 of those are prerequisites to be a scientific diver with AAUS and with our program at NOVA. So you think about it, those graduate students are taking our recreational classes, and they can do one right after the other. We offer multiple in a semester, but usually it's going to take them a couple semesters and then some to get to a dive master or leadership level. But it's really a great thing, because that's how we came to life, was to tell the president, look, students are going to go with the cheapest and quickest way possible. Yeah. So now students are going cheap and quick for all these 5 courses, and then they're a scientific diver with NOVA. Why not have an academic dive program that actually teaches them to be great divers, so that when they're in the field, when they're doing their research, they are just top notch. They've got all their skill sets down, which makes them safer, which makes the research good. So and that was how we came to life. So it's all a great area. I love academic diving.
Yeah, it's a whole different world. And I'm learning so much from that. I wish that was every diver's training program, right? But from a commercial aspect, and from being able to, flip divers and get them in and get the next ones in and so on, that's just not the model. And it's really sad. It's really sad that it can't be like, okay, I want to learn to dive. This is a serious undertaking. Number one, you're only going to get the people who really want to dive, because they've got to commit to the long term. And number 2, it's going to increase safety. Yep. It's going to increase safety across the board, because everyone will be at a higher level coming out of the class, And it echoes back to my open water training with BSAC. So how every dive training agency has their faux acronym, right? Yeah. Put another $1 in, or whatever it is. BSAC is begin slow and cautiously.
I've heard that before.
So I did 8 classroom sessions before I got in the pool. Yeah. So that's already not bad, and this was recreational. Yeah. Okay. Now this was through a university, but it was on the student level. It wasn't on the academic level. But I remember that, and I remember hey, when do we actually get to go diving? And not realizing that you're absorbing things that people don't even realize until they become dive professionals.
It's so true.
So I remember that very, very fiercely. But it would make a world of difference. But I just think do you agree with me that from a practical point of view, that method would never apply to a Cozumel beach dive shop?
No, it doesn't. Where we are today is much different. And so that's why you're watching presently the training agencies that have been doing an hourly program. Yeah. When you look at what we would call long form scuba course for open water diver, everyone has their own times of every course, but let's use open water diver. They're still in that 32-hour bracket. So you're going to spend the time over a series of weeks, maybe a couple nights a week, and you do your thing. That's what our 6-week course is. That is old school. That is your 70s and 80s model of open water diver training.
Old, but yeah, all right.
Right, exactly.
But all right. Point taken.
Yeah. And so since that is that old school model, it's frowned upon.
Yeah.
But here's the direct result. The direct result is that people want the consumer side of this. They want the cheap and quick. We are just indoctrinated into Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
And I want it now, and I want it cheap. And I'm going to go look for the cheapest and quickest way to get it. Yeah. So it's not a fault of the consumer to then go to Scuba and go, well, I want a card. I want a C card. I want to get trained.
Yeah.
So the C card becomes the commodity that they want to get cheap and quick. But they don't understand that there's more to it. And so would you say, hi, would you like cheap and quick golf lessons? No. No, I want to be a good golfer.
Yeah.
See, because there's a performance side of golf. That doesn't exist in our sport. People are not into the performance.
Well, it does, but they should be.
It does exist. Yes, you're right. But it doesn't exist in their mind.
The pros,
exactly.
And that's, GUE, God love them, for all their faults, for all their weird idiosyncrasies, that is something that they push is the focus on the foundations and performance-based training and control and buoyancy and trim and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And if there's anything, I've had brushes with that agency. We've met, read into that what you will. But I take away from that, and everyone that does open water with me, we start with foundational. Before we start doing mask, flood, and reg remove and all that, no, we start with, okay, let's get you breathing underwater, then let's get you neutrally buoyant, then let's sort your trim out, then let's work on your propulsion. Now we'll start doing skills. Let's teach you to dive first, and then I'll teach you some of the skills we have to do to get you that C card.
I love it.
So but that is, like I said, it's the performance-based mindset coming from any other sport. You said golf, rugby, skiing, mountain climbing, anything. Name any sport. It's all performance-based, right?
Yeah.
Because you can keep score. That's right. Free diving. How deep can I go? How long can I hold my breath? That's measurable. Yeah. It's very hard to measure in a numerical way scuba diving performance. The only way you can really do it is gas consumption. That's it. Right. That's the only way that's numerically measurable. You can't measure trim or neutral buoyancy. You can't measure it in any way that's meaningful,
And people aren't getting up going, look at this, and awards given and applause. It doesn't happen. No. So
tennis, you win, you keep score, you win, you get a trophy. There isn't any of that. So it is tough to measure performance. It's tough to encourage people to focus on being a good diver. Right. But I sincerely believe that there are people out there who maybe they've come from another sport or whatever, but they do care about performance.
That is the hugest point. I don't care if it's a university or a dive center. It doesn't matter. The deal is what we can't have happening now is an abbreviated training that reduces down to the minimum, like you're saying, that's all about the flip to the charts. And you mentioned mastery of skills. To a satisfactory level. One instructor's interpretation of mastery is different than another instructor's interpretation of mastery. So you can tell just by our time together what my definition of mastery might be.
We think the same way.
Yeah, and I know yours is too. And we are not seeing that out there. And the biggest evidence is that if you go diving, you're a diver, you go dive and you watch other divers' performance on a reef, on a wreck, anywhere like that. Is this rust? They haven't been diving in a long time, or are they newbies and they weren't trained well? There's a lot going on there. And I think for you and me, we live here in South Florida. All you got to do is get on Craigslist or OfferUp and type in scuba equipment.
Yeah.
And when you type in scuba equipment, here's the narrative that you're going to see. You're going to see complete packages up for sale.
Whole thing laid out in the garage driveway.
Laid out, the whole thing. Yeah.
I know the photo. It's all laid out in the garage driveway.
And it says used once, used twice, used once, used twice, used once.
Yeah.
So I took it upon myself to literally ask. So I went down the road of just saying, hi, interested in your gear. Why was it only used once? Why was it only used twice?
And?
It's always about scuba's not for me. I can't equalize. I can't equalize. Can't get the breathing right. It's all these weird things, and you're going, that could have been done in your training. And as you and I know, there's so many people that say, I took my scuba class and I can't equalize.
Yeah.
and I must have something wrong with my ears and blah, 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 and on and on and on. And I always say, can you equalize in an airplane? When you go in an airplane, does your ears equalize? Do you yawn? Do you yawn? Do you chew gum? Do you do anything? Oh yeah, I'm fine in an airplane.
Yeah, then you can equalize.
Then you can equalize.
Exactly.
You just were not doing it right, which means maybe you weren't taught right. Yeah. I hate to say that, hate to throw shade on instructors that aren't doing it, but doggone it. That's what's happening out there, and people are choosing to go with abbreviated short courses, and you're going to get what you pay for.
So I'm going to call you out on that one thing that we talked about before, because I think that's an interesting point, and you're kind of getting there on your own. But you said something that stuck with me really. What was it, like 3 months ago? We had a couple of beers and we planned this, and this is like now we finally get together, and I'm going to come on your podcast, and you're here on the channel, and it's all fantastic. But when we had those beers, one thing we talked about that stuck with me for so long afterwards was the fact that you've got this fantastic training program at NOVA where you're producing people up to the level of instructor, and they're leaving where they've done 15 weeks for open water and 15 more weeks to get to advanced level and 15 more for rescue. And so they're leaving with not only a degree in their chosen field, but they're leaving as professional instructors. Now, you've got a marine biology degree. There's not a lot of marine biology jobs out there. Often those people go into being a dive instructor to pay the rent while they're looking for their job in their chosen field. And one thing you said was that you've trained them the right way, and they've had this fantastic program with you guys, and they've left as dedicated professionals, and they know all the standards off by heart without looking, and so on. And they go and work at recreational dive centers, and then all of a sudden it's like coming off of the training field and being thrown into battle. And there's grenades going off, and standards are being broken left, right, and center, and they're getting shouted at because they can't finish an open water class in half a day or whatever. And then they come back to you and they say, Tec, what the hell, man? You trained me to be an instructor. I went out into the field and they broke my soul. What happened? Like, how do you explain to them the disparity between how you've trained them? And you can take a minute and have a drink, because might be a touchy answer. How do you explain the difference between what they're seeing in the field and the way that you've trained them?
No, it's simple as this. You let people explore. You let people get experiences. And if I were to beat my fist on the table and say, don't ever work in a dive shop because it won't be as good as what you've done here and blah, 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 then I'm just some egalitarian that's, that doesn't work. I don't want to be some ivory tower. You're a university guy. You don't know the real world. I know the real world. I've worked in the real world a whole lot.
You've cut your teeth.
But I've also seen the damage that is out there of people that no longer scuba dive because they weren't properly trained. So I prefer to do something a little different. I prefer to instill really great confidence and values and skill sets so that people can have a lifetime of diving. Now, when our divers, our instructors, they come through our program and they go and they get that job at a dive center, it's usually a very short amount of time before they're on the horn with me saying, they don't do what we do here. They don't do this. But look, it's not about that. When they go to that dive center, they know, all right, that dive center, I've done my research. They offer a 3-day scuba class. They offer a week-long scuba class. They offer whatever. It's up to that instructor to say, I'm going to try to fit that mold or I'm not. And that instructor can go, and we've had people go into dive centers and say, I'd like to be a private instructor because I want to only do private classes that are longer, that go with what I've been taught. Oh, okay, great. We've had others that, fit this keyhole model, and this is what it is. And they don't like it because they feel rushed because of the environment they were in, and they watch what the diver comes out, and it's rushed, as they always put it. But the biggest thing that you mentioned, standards violations and stuff like that, is that unfortunately, that's what's going on. And one case in particular, I had this young man, just a great guy, and he goes and works at a dive center, and he does his class, and the pool is at the dive center. And he says, where's the oxygen unit? And people were pointing and going, I don't know, I think it's here. I think it's there. So he finally got to the owner, and the owner says, well, we keep it upstairs. and it's in this closet over here, and blah, 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 and on and on. And he said, can we bring it down to the pool side or somewhere that it's more accessible instead of being upstairs, bring it down here? And the owner said, no, I don't want to put it anywhere where customers can see it, because then that makes them think that there's a danger to the sport. What? So there's a philosophy that exists with many different people, many different dive center owners, people that have been in this sport maybe too long, and then the right way. And so what happens is people start to shave off of the right way to do things, and they start to cut corners, and then all of a sudden you get some new blood that really knows what they're doing. They come in and there's just disparity. Whereas if an instructor was built up at that same dive center, they don't know any better.
They don't know any different, because they've only seen the one way of doing things, you know.
They don't know what they don't know. They don't know any different, and so they think everything is good and status quo. And the same happens with dive boats. The same happens with everything. I mean, it just.
But you wouldn't get on a dive boat that didn't have an O2 kit, right? You wouldn't get on it.
Yeah, but I mean, look, I used to do audits. We went on a dive boat once, and I said, "Where's your O2?" They went, "It's in that bench right there."
Yeah.
And I went, "Cool. Get it out.
Pressure it up."
So the deal was, you think, okay, it's right there, right? And everybody for years has pointed that it's right there. Because it was on the top deck where the captain is, all the salt had made and froze up the lock.
Yeah.
So dive master, captain, over and over and over again tried the lock, WD-40 in it, couldn't open it. They had to bolt cut it off when they got back to the dock. I mean, that's just the thing.
Yeah.
And so what kind of checks, what kind of auditing, what kind of that's going on? This is and I don't mean to say that it's
right. Well, by the way.
Right,
sorry,
exactly.
Hang on a minute. Let's back up here.
So I don't mean to say all these bad things, like our industry is super bad. No. There's really great people doing great things.
There is,
But when you hold yourself to a certain level, you all of a sudden become very noticeable about all the things that are not.
Right. But isn't it our job to pull people up to our level?
Yeah.
You know, without like you say, building ourselves an ivory tower. Yeah. But it's like, look, guys, there's the right way of doing things and the wrong way, you know, and you got to have the cojones to speak up and be like, no, this is wrong.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. We talked on the podcast about tech diving and some of the near misses that are happening. I'll give you another example that I didn't use on that. A tech diving friend of mine goes out for a charter. They get out to the dive site. Radio is not working. They've been trying to be calling that boat on the radio. The Coast Guard were calling, the CETO were trying to call this boat for something or other else, right? Radio's not functioning. Captain knew about it, didn't tell the divers.
Oh. Yeah.
I tell you, that is painful.
Yeah,
like I said, because my first question to that person, a friend of mine on the boat, I said, did they tell you before or after you left the dock that the radio wasn't working? Because if they had told you before you left the dock, that gives you the right to get the hell off the boat, which is absolutely what you should have done. Because if you're tech diving and you get down there and you have a problem, they can't radio for help, you're as good as gone. You know, it's not good. So,
man.
I know, that's just one more example. More example. But anyway, that was a different story, guys. You've got to go check out the podcast to see some of the other stuff that we've talked about. But Tec Clark, are you ready for the 10 questions we ask everybody?
I am.
Okay, question 1. Where was your first dive?
Lauderdale by the Sea, Florida.
How about that? What about your best dive?
Turks and Caicos.
Woo! Number 3, what place would you say you've dived the most?
Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
The caves.
The cave, or one specific site. Okay, cool. Number 4, who is your scuba diving hero, real or fictitious?
Fictitious.
Pressure's on.
Jules Verne.
Jules Verne, lovely. Well, he was a real person. He was the author.
Oh yeah, you're right. I should do that again. We should do that again.
No, take backs.
I was thinking Captain Nemo, I guess.
Number 5, what is your preferred scuba setup? Equipment configuration?
Hybrid.
6, favorite dive destination?
Kona, Hawaii.
7, freshwater or salt?
Salt. All day.
All day.
All night.
8, what was the last course you took?
presently in it, free diving instructor.
9, next dive trip you've got booked or planned.
Checkout dives, mid-November with my students, Fort Lauderdale.
Excellent. 10, bucket list dive you haven't yet done.
That would be Palau.
You are clear, sir. The other thing I want to talk about as well is you've trained hundreds of instructors.
Yeah.
And one of the big things I like to consider from sort of 40,000 foot view is the role of mentorship in the dive industry. To be someone like you who's had so much influence on people who have had so much influence on all those divers. So say you said somewhere between 300 and 500 instructors you've made. Let's go out and say that they've made 10 or 20 students each. Let's say there's 5 or 10,000 people out there who have from that pyramid trickled down from your training, right? Yeah. It's daunting. How do you maintain that mentorship relationship with people that you trained 5 years ago, 10 years ago,
Yeah, the interesting thing is that I believe that in the mentorship cycle with what we do, it's an absolute immersive, intense mentorship.
Yeah.
To me, it is what I would consider pressing on somebody. So if you take your person, your clay, whatever metaphor you want to use, and you press hard with your thumb and you remove it, your thumbprint is there.
Yeah.
That is what we do in that mentorship capacity. It is not a long-term thing. I literally sit back and I watch the people that have left our program. They've gone to a dive center. They've gone, I don't want to be in a dive center. And what happens? They then become a dive safety officer. So that's the number one job that's coming out of our dive program. They got the skill sets in scuba. They got the marine biology degree or graduate degree. And then the two beautifully merge and they become a dive safety officer for an aquarium, a university, a college, a research firm, a government agency, and they're the dive safety officers coming right out of their schooling, and boom, they're in this position because they've got all the skill sets for it. It's brilliant.
But do they come back to you? Do they email you? Do they pick up the phone and be like, hey Tec, I've got this problem?
Yeah, it's only extremely rare that people call back and say, hey, I want to know something. It's usually just like an insurance question or maybe a training agency question. All the rest has been just like instilled with them for that time that I've got with them, and a precious amount of months or years that I have with them under my time. And they walk away and they've got all those skill sets. Yeah. So they walk away, and that is where I find the mentorship. So then people reflect back and they say, I remember this, and they, all these great kudos and stuff like that. But it doesn't persist. Yeah. They literally have gotten out of the nest. They've spread their wings and they're flying.
See, that kind of surprises me, and I'll tell you why. When I think about my mentors in diving, there's two people that stick out to mind, and they're both my instructor trainers. So my recreational instructor trainer, my course director, and my tech instructor trainer, who is the owner of the dive center that I was brought up through. And those two people were very well known, very powerful figures in the industry. They sadly are both no longer with us, but just powerhouses in the industry. Now, I wasn't their only instructor that they ever trained. They wouldn't have built the reputation if they did one instructor a year or whatever. These people trained hundreds of thousands of people. And, of course, I'm talking about Andy Phillips from Utila, of course. You think about how many people he trained and how many people those people have gone on to train, and his sort of influence over 12 years as a platinum course director. I know that I emailed him once a week on average, because when he passed, I made a tribute video and I looked back at my contact with him, and that's not including the phone calls, the Facebook messages, the text messages, the trips we went on together, the conversations we had. I had contact with that guy for years and years after I finished my IDC. He owed me nothing. He owed me nothing, right? And I wasn't the only person, because he was plowing emails all the time.
Right.
I thought that would be the same for you. And I'm interested if the difference there is not because, you're any less of an instructor trainer than he was, but it's because you've done that excessive training beforehand and you've prepared them better than he can at a commercial dive center where it's like, well, next month we've got 20 new IDC candidates, got to get these ones out the door.
I think that's what it is. Working at one of the biggest diving schools in South Florida, Pro Dive. When we were part of Pro Dive and you watched that, there was a cycle, there was a mill that was happening there. Yeah. That instructors were coming, they were getting good training and then leaving. And there were really nice bonds that were formed. And it was good. But that is I'm paying my money to come here to get this, and then I'm out. Yeah. And I'm going to go back to here, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go here. Our people, we're part of their life right now. Yeah. We're going through a time that is those college years. They're trying new things. I counsel people on their breakups with their boyfriends and girlfriends, and you get that over a long period of time. And at the same time, I'm watching them not only take our training, but now they're teaching classes. Yeah. Now they're leading the dive trips from the dive club. And I get to be a part of those. And it's always learning. We're never stopping learning. We do, all of our debriefings after every pool session even. We all gather together. We just did it yesterday morning. Yeah. And I'm going, here's what I need to do to improve. And here's what you guys can do to improve that particular skill. And here was the sun, and here's where the students were. Yeah. Look, and we're talking about just little tweaks here and there to better. And they get that. And so our time together is so intense and rich that what happens is when they leave, they are literally like soaring.
They've had enough of you.
I'm just on Facebook going,
yeah. Oh my God. Man. You're like the director of diving for, NASA or something. Exactly. Like, thanks.
I'm like, look at you. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Where are you now? You're in Australia now. Are you kidding me? I've never been to Australia diving.
Yeah. Right? I came out of university. I own 3 liverboards. Good for you, man. Exactly. Like, how many days?
So I'm just watching these people soar. And so I really think that the mentorship side is a very intense deal of what I do. But then it's a long-standing friendship that always exists, and it's just more than that. If they have a technical scuba question, they ask. Yeah. But we've also taught people how to fish for themselves. Yeah, exactly. And so I got people that might ask me an insurance question, and they'll say, "Have you read the bylaws, and have you read the warranties and exclusions?" And oh yeah, you're right. I'll go do that now. And so. Because I've taught them, you got to read these, and then they go, oh yeah. So, that's what I think mentorship is all about.
Fantastic.
It leads into a wonderful friendship.
Tec, cheers to that, mate. Cheers. Here's to another wonderful friendship. It's great having you here, hanging in the dive locker. Really appreciate it.
Exactly.
Down the hatch. Mm-hmm. Literally the only thing that Ireland makes well. I'll put that on record. Tec, how can people follow you? How can they engage with your content?
Oh, if you are a diver and a passionate diver, you love diving, then the League of Extraordinary Divers podcast is just where I interview these legends in the industry. They've got great stories. It's all about stories and their stories. And, if you could have a coffee or a beer with them, what would they be saying? So that's a really cool one. And then if you're a dive pro, dive master or higher, the Dive Locker podcast is exclusively content just for dive professionals, and that's a good one. That comes out every week. So there you go.
And scubadiving.com, and you're selling yourself short, man. You've got scubaguru.com, which I'll link below in the description of this video. You've got all the podcast information there as well, so they can find you through that. Plus your training courses.
Oh, right. Scuba Guru Academy is a bunch of online courses that are unique. They're not something that you would find within a scuba training agency. They're just to enhance skills and different areas that are unique to people. So that's Scuba Guru Academy. Yeah, thanks. I forgot about that.
Don't worry.
I'm too busy.
Everything you do, I'm going to link in the description below so people can check it out. But mate, it's been a pleasure having you here. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me for this, the next in our series of My Dive Buddies, coming to you from the Divers Ready studio. And my guest today was Tec Clark. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already, and do check out Tec's podcasts because they are essential listening for anyone who loves scuba diving. And until next time, my name's James. This was your Divers Ready video for this week. Dive safe, dive often.